The Institute of World Affairs at the University of Wisconsin-Milwaukee presents International Focus, a weekly discussion of the people and events behind today's global headlines. Support provided by Milwaukee Public Television and the UW-M Center for International Education. Now here's your host, Doug Savage.
Hello, I'm Anish, Interim Director with the UW-M Institute of World Affairs. Across the world today, colleges and universities, faculty and administration are dealing with a rapidly shifting educational landscape. In many countries, globalization has raised young people's expectations for opportunities that were unimaginable a generation earlier. Demand for higher education is rising, particularly in the world's emerging economies. Throughout the world, keen competition for students and faculty has forced colleges and universities that once served a regional population to aggressively position themselves within an emerging global education marketplace. Many well-known universities have begun establishing satellite campuses in other parts of the world. How do we make sense of these and other global trends in higher education? Our guest today is at the helm of a large urban research institution navigating the sometimes turbulent waters of 21st century global higher education. Mark Mone is the 9th Chancellor of the University of Wisconsin-Milwaukee, where he has served in both faculty and administrative roles for over 25 years. Chancellor Mone, welcome to International Focus.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
So let us begin with a simple question. When we talk about international education or internationalization of higher education, what are we exactly talking about?
Well, there's a couple of ways to look at that. One is that historically, international education used to mean where the United States had a really great higher education product relative to the rest of the world's education institutions. And we were a place where a lot of students came from around the world and got a great education and either stayed here or went to their home countries. That's evolved dramatically today, where so many countries have remarkable higher education profiles, opportunities, and some of your comments earlier about the richness of knowledge and appreciation in a truly global sense today has made it a very competitive landscape, and it's important for us to recognize the richness and the diversity that's brought to our campus by having students from abroad, but also for us to go abroad and to have programs and for our students and our faculty to go abroad. So today, what we have is a rich amalgam of international experiences for students, for faculty, for staff, and really individuals in our community to benefit from all the advantages that being international and understanding the global context in a much greater way. Particular to UW-Milwaukee, we've seen great strides over the last 15 years, and I've been here, as you mentioned, over 25 years, and so what I've really seen is a real significant transformation where we have expanded dramatically programs on so many different levels that I look forward to talking with you about this afternoon as we think about what does the future hold and how has that been important today.
Oh, yes. You mentioned the importance of the United States early on. And I remember in 1960, I think the age cohort that entered tertiary education in the US was about 40% already. And now we are looking at the world and we are looking at significantly smaller numbers still. And so there is much more growth to come. So for example, today I think it's about 20 to 30% of the people in the world in their age cohort that are entering higher education. So it seems it's going to grow. So in that context, what is UW-M doing in this changing context where there's a kind of massification of higher education that's happening? And how are we positioning ourselves? What are the programs that are we leading here in the United States?
So the things that we're doing specific to really growing and providing greater quality education for international students include the types of opportunities for us to have a recognition that an international student is not just an international student, but they're like all our students, and we want success for all of them. The specific challenges that we find is around homeland security, immigration policies, and for us to continue to improve how we make UWM home for so many of our foreign students, our visitors, and this is important for faculty and staff as well. It's not just a student environment, but the specific programs and activities that we participate in today that we haven't before as much is a lot of international recruitment activities, a lot of partnership work. Our Center for International Education and Institute for World Affairs really give us a high profile for being able to go abroad, have much greater recognition. For Wisconsin especially, that's a challenge because we're not as well known. When you go abroad, you have to position, where is Wisconsin? Well, we're by Chicago. Oh, Chicago. And Milwaukee is a suburb of Chicago? Oh, okay, I get that. So if we're on the east or west coast where there's more international populations to begin with, for example, in my background from Washington State, we had tremendous populations from Asian countries, just tremendous indigenous. It had become, home for so many generations of students from India, from different Southeastern Asian countries, and remarkable internationalization. In the Midwest, we don't have that as much. So for us, it's been developing over the last 15 years extensive partnership arrangements that facilitate where our students, American students, can go abroad and vice versa. So we have hundreds of students that participate every year. I think the number is about 600 students that are UW-Milwaukee students from the United States that go abroad, and then we have about 3 times, 2.5, 3 times that many students who come from around the world to study, whether it's in well, there's just no shortage of different programs that students come to study. But one of the keys is how we recruit, where we recruit. It's the partnerships, it's the arrangements, and then the opportunities that we provide, and especially around when we have faculty that go abroad and help develop connections, and it all really builds on. So there's this wonderful momentum, and it is vitally important to us for our future.
You mentioned Washington State and compared to, let's say, Wisconsin. So the question that someone might ask in Wisconsin, like, why do we need all these international students? Why do we need internationalization of the university? Its role has been regional for ages. Why do we care? What good does it bring to us?
Well, real easily. Number one, the internationalization of UW-Milwaukee is vitally important for us to understand the world is a global place. If you're in business, it's a global marketplace. If you're in healthcare, it's a global in terms of how we approach issues. Just today we hear the news about one of the doctors who volunteered in West Africa, and he comes back potentially with Ebola. Issues are global in the world. When we have a SARS crisis or when we have an AIDS crisis, these are global issues. And for us to not understand and appreciate the richness, the diversity, whether it's at the language, linguistics, if it's the history, the culture, that enriches our campus. Our students are better off for being exposed to the international flavor. Same thing with the faculty and staff. We benefit tremendously by having a large number of faculty and staff who are not from the United States, who really come in and can help share their experiences, help understand the world in a very much more profound way. I also think that for Milwaukee, because we're in the Midwest and we're not exposed to what you have on the coast, if you're in Miami, if you're in Seattle, New York, LA, you have a much greater cosmopolitan diversity of perspectives and experiences, and we're a little more sheltered from that in the Midwest. It affects styles and fashion, but it also affects a lot of cultural differences. Having more international experiences in terms of both students coming from other countries and faculty and staff, as well as us taking students who've never been abroad, who really can benefit and bring a lot of life lessons back, a lot of great experiences. Frankly, transformational, life-changing types of experiences. Having been abroad, having taken student groups abroad for many years, it's amazing how much more beneficial, how much more growth experiences students have when they can have that experience, and how many of them, once they get started, want to go see more of the world and bring this to life. And if you think about any of the fields that are represented in a university, from the arts and the sciences and the liberal arts to the professional practices, all the different areas in which we have wonderful schools and colleges, they're all enriched by a global experience.
I think you gave a great, very fantastic examples about the kind of social good the international education brings to a region, and the level of tolerance, and in a kind of globalized world where one has to deal with diversity of different populations. What about economic benefits? Do we gain anything economically by international students?
Well, I think that, first of all, growth and stability in enrollments does help in the environment that we're in today. When we talk about growth and enrollment trends, obviously international students have I think, a lot of advantages for the university in that they live in the community where you wouldn't have that if we just drew from students who are already here. You've got a delta, you've got growth in that regard. Students do pay out-of-state tuition, so there's a benefit there. But I think that the other piece of this, international students have a much higher retention rate, and so the experience for the last dozen or more years has been the greatest retention rate we've had is in international students. It's close to 80% in terms of continuation, and this is a remarkable statistic, and it shows up, from an economic perspective, that's fewer students you have to recruit to fill the seats of students who've left from the previous year. So there's lots of them as well, but my view is that the internationalization, the richness, the diversity, the different perspectives, that's the big win here, I think. And it's mutual. It's not just what we gain and what the community gains. It's the students who come here that learn about things. And in my experience, this is where I can't recommend enough how important it is for students to really immerse themselves and become part of the UW-Milwaukee experience. I've seen here and at other universities where students don't always take advantage of that, where they can stay in their pods, stay in their comfort zones. I've done that myself when I've gone abroad initially, and it's not the real experience. So.
And yeah, you mentioned about, but I also see that in higher research, especially in the sciences and engineering, do we see a bigger cluster of graduate students coming from abroad?
Yeah, I see where there's absolutely some great programs that we have that really draw students in from different regions of the world. We see, for example, from China, we have a large number of students in engineering and graduate programs. There are clusters, there are examples in areas like that. And that I think is understandable. That makes an awful lot of sense, and yet there's still, I think, a lot of integration across the different student populations where we have those pockets.
Mm-hmm. So we'll take a short break, and when we come back, we'll get more into the idea or the question about how higher education could be, and many of you have suggested in the past, be an economic growth engine for the state and for the cities. So we'll explore more after this short break.
Okay. Great.
The Institute of World Affairs presents our community with a range of public programs relating to global issues, U.S. foreign policy, and the world economy. For more information about the Institute of World Affairs, call 414-229-3220. or visit our website at www.iwa.uwm.edu.
Welcome back to the show. So as we were discussing, Chancellor Mone, about higher education as the economic engine of a region, of a state, of a city, what do we mean by this?
So this is a great opportunity for me to be able to talk a little bit about the partnerships and the engagements that we have in the community. And when you talk about the university as a driver for economic growth, what I'd encourage anybody to think about is when you look at thriving economies, whether it's in Berlin, in Scandinavia, different countries there, as you look at things that we know in the United States, in Boston, in Austin, in Silicon Valley, around Seattle and Portland, those corridors, those areas oftentimes are clustered around a research university or a complex of research universities. That is a necessity for strong regional economic growth. The role of internationalization of that and how UWM fits in that space is, if we think about our key clusters in terms of the things that we're trying to pursue, there's 5 key areas, and they really revolve around a number of aspects: student success, research that matters, community engagements, creating a culture here that is diverse, inclusive, and can accommodate change, and a higher visibility, brand, and image. And the role of the university and how we can play and the role of internationalization reinforces all of those. Successful students, those that are retained, those that can engage in our research, work with faculty and staff, and engage in the community through their particular applications in a more worldly experience, a more global perspective. Those are powerful, and that in turn enriches our climate and is really something that if we do that well, our brand, our image, and reputation grows dramatically, not just in the region, but frankly nationally, as the students can look back and say, here's where I got my degree. One of our more notable alumni, Satya Nadella, is a classic example of a gentleman who came here from India, got his master's degree in computer science, went on to University of Chicago, and today is the CEO of Microsoft. That is an example of, while he's helping Microsoft in the Redmond, Washington area, we benefit from that, and many of our alumni have gone on and done wonderful things in different places in the world. But from a patent development, from a creativity, from innovation, from contributions in any of our particular schools and colleges, we see an enrichment from an international audience that thrives and can really build regional economic development in a lot of ways. The other component is the workforce side of that. So in some ways, when I talk about research, it's the ideas, and we're an idea factory. Universities really create the best ideas, patents, licensing, commercialization, but it's also the talent side. So as we think about what we do to enrich the workplace and the workforce across all fields, that's tremendous. And it's not just for this region, but really where our students go. And then from a long-term strategic perspective, how many of our students go to their home countries, start successful businesses, contribute to organizations across the world that enrich their economies, that really build on. And a lot of our students, whether they go into political careers, whether they go into further research careers, or a number of different occupations, it enriches those societies, enriches those places, and hopefully those experiences students benefit from and want to continue to give back to their alma mater, which contributed so much to their success.
Yeah. So, and you also have, it is my understanding that you have some experience leading some teams from UWM to abroad. Could you tell us about that?
You bet. I'd be happy to. It's a real highlight from the academic perspective of things that I've done. I started taking students abroad when I was at Washington State as a graduate student, and then a faculty member. And I took a group of students from the western part of the United States into programs that I was teaching in Switzerland, and spent some time teaching with over 200 students from 60 different countries, and first got a taste of that. So I've always been a big proponent of internationalization of our faculty, of our students, of our curriculum, of a lot of different areas in the campus. So when I moved into beginning administrative work with our executive MBA program, I helped sponsor and move our program to have a required international residency component. So we spent the first 2 years of this, the first 2 years we went to different European locations, and then the third year we went to China. We were in Hong Kong and Beijing, and we visited a number of different types of organizations. We would visit universities, we would visit companies, and the companies were of 2 different types. Some would be companies that were headquartered and fundamentally located in non-American countries. So we'd really see that perspective. And then the other example would be companies that were headquartered here, oftentimes in Milwaukee, and looking at how their operations worked, and then we can compare and contrast. And we would oftentimes study these teams in advance, and we always customize these because we have tremendous richness with our students and alumni. So as an example, at the time, a lot of luxury car makers were getting into making sport utility vehicles, and we were able to visit in Birmingham, England, the senior management team of Jaguar. And Jaguar was on the verge of thinking about should they make a sport utility vehicle. Porsche and Cadillac and others there were rumors that they were going to have sport utility vehicle, and we had studied some case materials ahead of time, and we were able to provide perspectives for the senior management team because our executive MBAs, with their diverse and extensive business backgrounds, we had some good discussions, and one of the conclusions that we made to Jaguar was we built a business case for why they should. They chose to ignore us, and we think they're not as well off today because they didn't go down that. But if you look at virtually anybody else in the luxury car market segment, from BMW, Porsche, name the car company, they almost all have sport utility vehicles. But Jaguar to this day does not, and maybe that's why they, didn't do as well, and why they had to be acquired by a number of other firms. But even Volvo today has a significant crossover vehicle. So company after company, they'll access to senior management, and I would say to a student, they would, as they've come back, they would say, I'm going back, and so many of them do. And they bring business opportunities back. They have tremendous, when you talk about economic development, to your earlier question, it enriches their business operations when they have a better understanding of the culture. And when we go to universities and our students, who themselves are not all American, it's oftentimes largely American though, when they go abroad, and what the Chinese or the English or the French or Brazilian students learn from our students who've gone abroad. But for me personally, it was one of the great things that I have done in terms of being able to experience with the students and our partners, our different connections abroad, that kind of understanding and growth experience.
Mm-hmm. So now I think we're going to shift gear and talk about something that I see as a global trend. So from China to the UK, there is a growing trend of increasing tuition fees for students where higher education was completely free. So they're following in some ways our model. So in this context, what can we tell them from our model in terms of this trajectory? Because the state's withdrawal from higher education, whether in these countries or in the United States, what consequences do we have given this trajectory?
I think the paradigm in higher education in the United States is clearly changed in terms of the books, the research, the chronicling of how public education has become much more like a private model, as states generally have reduced their funding nationally over the last several decades. It has put a much greater burden on students, families, in the form of tuition increases. I think globally, as the numbers of students expand, governments, there's two dynamics at work. Other countries have developed great education systems. The emergence of so many more universities in Europe and in China and other Asian locations, in India today, it's dramatic, the growth and the quality of those institutions. And the populations who are wealthy enough today to go to those institutions, it has created a very different landscape in terms of higher education. I don't know the dynamics as well abroad as I do nationally, but my sense is that as those countries continue to evolve in terms of more population, and as we look at global economies when there are downturns, and we just recovered from a significant global downturn, but as there are threats to economic vitality, the cost of education is hard to bear, and the larger your system and the more government support there is, the more dependence you have. And if the economy falters, you get a lot of rolling back. And either tuition is going to go up, or we're going to continue to see a lot more transference across borders. That's not all bad. I welcome that for students and faculty, staff to gain experiences from going to other educational opportunities. But I think that at some point there probably will be parity, that we're all going to be in a similar situation. The cost of higher education is quite high, and absent an economic support, a socialized learning system, you will continue to have increased costs passed on to students and their families.
Mm-hmm. And as we have known, that higher education has been a great equalizer in some ways between classes, between haves and have-nots. We have about just 1 minute left. Could you just tell us quickly, this trend is going to lead to more social inequality in some sense, or is there a silver lining in this, dark clouds?
Well, the good news, as I see it, is there is an increase in the education of populations. Mm-hmm. So the good news is, as more education, higher education proliferates, there's more opportunities and there's more education access. But it can be divisive in the sense that if there are not programs, if there are not plans and societal support, it can contribute to haves and have-nots, just like access to technology and other learning aids.
Thank you. With that remark, I think we will end our show. It was really nice to talk with you and learn about internationalization of higher education. And thank you for joining us on International Focus. See you next time. Thank you.
My pleasure to be here. Thank you.
For information about the Institute of World Affairs and its many programs, or to become a member of the Institute, call 414-229-3220 or visit us at our website,